Thank you for watching this video. So in a previous video, we touched a bit on Ableton Live, and I wanted to give you a real-time what it looks like when I'm building a set. So I have a Sunday coming up, and I'm going to assume that you may not know all the things. So please forgive me in advance if it seems like overkill, but I want to make sure that you are aware of every single thing that happens whenever I'm building a set. So we're gonna pull up the computer here. So I'm literally sitting where I normally stand on a Sunday morning, and to the left of me, you're right. Well, no, to my left. Yeah, to my left, and as you're watching the screen, it's on your left as well, there is an Ethernet cable specifically for internet. So there's one that goes into the P16, which lives on around this mic stand, and there's one over here as well to my left. So the first thing I'm going to do, now I'm not saying you need to be on the stage to build for Ableton Live. You do not, but it's going to make sense as to why I'm doing that in a second. So the first thing I want to do, typically, there's a lot of Sundays, I'll be honest with you, that I've led worship. And over the years, it just sometimes can get difficult when it's a Tuesday or a Wednesday and I've planned out what I'm going to do for Sunday. I may not always remember. So the first thing I want to do is open up Planning Center. Now, if you have a great memory, then hey, this step is not something you have to worry about. But for me, I have to worry about it. So I see that I'm doing Fairest Lord Jesus in C, Satisfy in E, He is Yahweh in D, and I'm doing Faithful, and we're ending with Give Thanks to God. So what I want to do, firstly, is to pull up Ableton Live. And I just want to make sure that nothing is living on my hard drive, because if something is, then maybe I don't need to pull it from Dropbox. We covered that in the previous video, so some of that you'll see again in this video as well. So I have a folder called Temporary Sunday Storage, and I see that I have Fairest Lord Jesus in two different keys. I have it in A and C, so I don't have to worry about uploading that. I also have Satisfy. I'm going to delete that so this isn't confusing. So I've Satisfy, and I believe that is all I have for this coming Sunday. So what I want to do right now is go ahead and clear out anything that I'm not using for this coming Sunday. So there's a reason why I call it temporary Sunday storage. I don't want it to live there forever, and just doing a little bit of housekeeping. So I'm going to move that to the trash. Again, you hover over something. I don't have a mouse, so I'm right-clicking things. I click over what I want to get rid of and hit Shift, and then go to the top of to the very end of what I don't want. Delete, move to trash. So there should only be two things in this temporary Sunday storage that that I need for this coming Sunday. So we have Fairest Lord Jesus and we have Satisfy. Next, I need to download He is Yahweh, Faithful, and Give Thanks to God. So I'm going to go to my trusty Dropbox account, and I'm going to actually convey a couple of thoughts before I get into it. So I have Ableton Live open, or I'm sorry, I look into the Ableton folder, and remember every song that I've done in my tenure, I have it placed under formatted songs. And you might find that when you have it formatted, you'll want to put these in this folder as well, because again, it's a great place to just store everything. Now, let's go to the Contemporary Worship Songs folder. So one thing that I actually wish I had done back when I started putting all of these into Dropbox is to, instead of putting it in as a zip file initially, I wished that I started to do it here at the very top. You can see where I have How Great Is Our God. I have it in E, and then there's a zip file for that specific key. And the same thing goes for Sing to the King. It just happens to be in E as well. But what I'm trying to get at is that I wished that I had separated it out by zip file according to the key that the song is in. So in this, you see, prime example, I have a zip file in A, I have a zip file in E, and then I have another zip file in F sharp. I'm not going to show you that one, but The reason I say that is because instead of me having to download all of the audio information in every key every time I download a song from this formatted songs folder, it would have been easier to just have it separated by key. So the reason I'm not doing that, I'm not going to catch up on that, is because I would never be able to do these videos. So that's something you'll just have to navigate. So the first thing I'm going to do, this is why I keep Planning Center open. I forget very quickly. So I need to download He Is Yahweh. So I'm going to find He Is Yahweh in the formatted songs folder. Of course, it's in alphabetical order. Or I can just search He Is Yahweh within the folder. And we see that we have it right here. Now, again, it's important to have this computer hardwired via Ethernet, because that does speed up your download time, of course. So while that's going on, I know I can go ahead and go back into the folder and start searching for the other things that I need. I need Faithful. I'm going to go ahead and download Faithful. And lastly, I need Give Thanks to God. Now, set building is very easy when I know that I already have done the songs, I've already formatted them. There's not a lot involved other than making sure I'm ready to do them on Sunday. So this process should be relatively painless. So while all of that is happening, I'm going to go ahead and open up my Finder window, wherever it went off to. Okay, go to Downloads. And I'm going to go ahead and unzip the He Is Yahweh song file. The reason we zip things up is because it condenses the amount of space it takes up within a folder, within Dropbox. So while I'm just going to wait on that to happen for a second, I'm going to close out any extracurricular activities so that the computer isn't having to work as hard. It's still going to be working hard, but I don't want to add any obstacles. And again, this points to why I wish that I had separated them out by key. Now, you can still feel the freedom to do that. Okay, so once that has downloaded, I'm going to drag that into my temporary song storage, my temporary Sunday storage folder in Ableton Live. So there we go. And now I'm going to go back to the very top of my Finder, and I'm going to do the same thing with Faithful. Now, the advantage of having it all in one zip file is that it does include all of the keys that I've ever saved all the keys I've ever saved this song in. So if I find that something isn't the right key, it's early in the week, I have time to change it, then I can, if I've saved another key, then it's easy for me to just grab it. So it really depends on what your preference is. Another reason why I didn't go down too far the rabbit hole of separating it out by key is that, hey, maybe somebody else might find an easier way, or maybe you'll have a system in place that you'll want to do it by. And I don't want to dictate my system upon anyone else, but the moral of the story is that, hey, you have all of the audio in Dropbox that you need. So, okay, Faithful, it has now completed. So I'm going to drag that over into my temporary Sunday storage. And the last thing I'm going to do is unzip Give Thanks to God. And again, we're going to give that a second. I know it takes a little bit longer when we don't have all of the files existing locally on the computer, but the plus side is that if anything were to happen to the computer and you've left all your files solely on your computer, you're not out of luck. Another option would be to maybe use an external hard drive and keep all of your files there, and make sure that you have it plugged in whenever you're using Ableton Live on a Sunday. That option exists as well. So it really just depends on what you find to be the most advantageous for yourself. So in about 10 more seconds, that's going to be done doing what it needs to do. Now, again, once it used to be that I would keep all of my files on on the MacBook Pro, but I just got really nervous about that and didn't want to take any chances. All right, so we have Give Thanks to God. The reason why it says Give Thanks to God too is that apparently I've already downloaded that song onto this computer at some point, and that's okay. That's not. I can rename it right here and be just fine. It doesn't matter if I call it 2 or it really doesn't matter. So now that all those things are in my temporary Sunday storage, we're doing 5 songs Sunday, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now I can go into my worship templates. And you'll see, if you watched the previous video I had about Ableton Live first, you'll see that this folder I've been able to clean up a little bit, so you're not having to look at as many things that are happening. So what I want to do is open up the worship set template. The worship set template. Now, of course, as always, we've talked about this countless times at this point, but I want to go ahead and save it as whatever the date is for the coming Sunday. So I have a folder in here called Sunday Sets, and you saw it a second ago, and then it just went away. So Sunday Sets 2022, and I know that this coming Sunday is May 1st. May the 1st be with you, and then may the 4th be with you. All right. May 1, 22. So you're seeing I gave it a folder name, and now I'm calling it 5122 set. And really, it's about whatever system works best for you. My best advice is that whatever you do, make sure you stay consistent, because in a crunch, you don't want to think too hard about what you named something. So if you do the same thing over and over, your brain will automatically expect that. So it just makes finding things way easier. So I'm going to go ahead and save that. What I want to do, the reason why, so if I keep it at 1-32, that means it's accounting for every 30-second beat that happens in a song. And I don't really want that, because I'm gonna be moving things around a little bit. So there's no right or wrong way to think about that. It's just a preferential thing for me. Now, because I'm in the actual position where I would be on a Sunday morning, I have my Ethernet cable plugged in, all those things. So where it says select playlist, down to where it says D period then Pro, I know that means it's going to be talking to my iMac in the back. There's a network called New iMac Network that I want to make sure that already has on there. And I don't tend to use these rows. I don't use the lights in the speaker. So I've deleted what I don't need, and I'm strictly looking at things that I consistently use on a Sunday morning. So when I'm ready to put that first song in there, I want to remember firstly what that song is. So again, this might be overkill, but I am such a visual person. I need to make sure that I have the right things in there. So Fairest Lord Jesus. So I'm going to go ahead and rename this. By doing that, you go to the locator, hit rename, Fairest Lord Jesus. So that is the first song. So if I hit keystroke 1, that takes me right there. And we covered this before, but still, I'm going to go through everything that we've done in the past so that you get a clearer picture of what it looks like on a Sunday. So Fairest Lord Jesus in C. I want to go down to the very last thing I can pull. All right, great. So the first thing I want to do, I want to go to the tracks. I want to select all of them. So Shift, select it, Shift, go down to the very last track you see. Command X, hit the number 1, Command V, that is to paste. And all this information we desperately need, but we want to move it to where it's already been built within the template. So Command X, hit number 1, Command V. And so it's retained all that information. Now we just delete what we don't need. So we don't need any of that. All right. We're going to cover routing toward the end. You'll see that grayed out, but I don't want to talk about it yet. For right now, I want to get through our set list. So The first thing we do after doing that, we go to our click track and make sure it's leading, it's setting the tempo for all the tracks that follow it for this specific song. Now, one thing I had done a long time ago was indicate what sections are happening throughout the song. And I want to do that in case I ever want to repeat a section or if I just need to glance and remember where we are. I don't tend to have that problem, but it still is just a helpful guide. So now I'm going to add locators. Right click, add locator. Verse 1. Again, this is it's tedious, but it doesn't take you long, and it's helpful in the long run to have this. Whoops. I have key commands for everything. So I hit key. If I get out of place, I can always go to that. Whoops. I can see where I left off at. Okay, there we go. Verse 2. The reason this template, well, this is not a template anymore, but it's based off the template. The reason I have that is because I have a lot of settings, a lot of keystrokes that are built into this that wouldn't be there if you were to just open up a random new file in Ableton. So this has been refined over the course of 5 years of using Ableton. So, and it works really well for me. And again, if you have a template and you've used it over and over and over again, there's no real thinking that is required. The last thing you really want to do on a Sunday morning is to be thinking about how you have things mapped out on Ableton Live, because that's overall a distraction that you don't necessarily want. All right, vamp, bridge, outro, ending. All right. So I'm gonna cheat a little bit. Of course, our protocol with sending tracks to our soundboard is something called Dante. So I'm doing this so I can hear where we are at the end here. All right, you can tell probably a little bit from this microphone that, hey, it's working the way we want it to work, which is exactly, that's what we want. So we go, so that's the very first song there. Now, what I like to do, and this is not something you have to feel the pressure or anything to implement for yourself, but when I know I'm done with a song, where I find that ending, and basically I don't want a lot of pause in between my songs. So I'm going to delete that last locator, and I'm going to look up what my second song is. I know that it's Satisfy after looking it up. I'm going to rename this marker as Satisfy. Now, there's nothing stopping you from having pauses and maybe starting that second song where there's nothing happening. But again, I do that because I prefer continuity as much as I can help it. So now what I'm going to do is go across all the tracks that will go into our sound system. Actually, I just go across all of them because I don't want to have to think about what's going in and what's going out, or what's going in and what's not going in. And I'm going to cut the audio by hitting Command E. And what I'm going to do is take it off of warp. Warp is basically a way of making sure that everything stays in the tempo that is set by the click track. That's why we let it lead. But when I take warp off, it's still going to go according to its natural tempo. So this is important because what I don't want is when I drag the information for Satisfy and that click takes over, I don't want the song file for the first song, Ferris Lord Jesus, for these last few measures to go in the tempo of Satisfy, because that would sound like a train wreck, right? So I want it to naturally do what it's going to do as we're bringing Satisfy in. And the way that we do that is by unwarping. I don't know if that's a term, but taking the warp setting off. which when it's grayed out like that, that means it's off. So we're going to go to, now we're going to go through the process of starting Satisfy. So I'm going to collapse that because that's information I no longer need. And what I like to do is I like to assign track color to the group tracks and clips. So it's already there, but I'm just going to solidify that by hitting that. So everything looks the same color in that grouping. I find that nice for my own brain. Doesn't mean you have to do it that way, but it's just the less distracted I am and the easier I can get to things if I need to, the better in the long run. All right. So now we're going to look at Satisfy. And same sort of situation. We're going to drag what we need, or actually drag the entire file. And we need the entire file. So always drag it. Rule of thumb. Just do that. All right. So Command X, hit the number 2, Command V. We go up to our information, our song mapping, our cues, our click, our dynamic cues, and the information that ProPresenter needs for slide automation. We hit Command X. Go to the top, Command V. And then we delete what we don't need. Again, what you don't want is a bunch of stuff that's just clutter, because that ultimately can be very, very distracting for you. All right, so now all of that is the same color. And we look at our click again, make sure that click is leading. I think I already did that. Okay, so, and it's not routed into DOM. I'm going to go ahead and talk about routing real quick. Routing is how we get our sound from this MacBook to the very back. We use a protocol named Dante. And the secret sauce for the routing is in these tabs. It's already giving you a list of things to choose from. If I needed drums, I know that's going to go in my loops. Loops are going to go in loops. It's pretty self-explanatory. If I don't have a bass player, I can put that in our bass slot. Electric guitar, we can go into the guitar slot. Electric piano, keys. We're not using, I don't tend to use tenor or baritone, or I don't tend to use backing vocals, but if you found that you wanted to do that, by all means, feel the freedom to do that. So now I'm going to collapse it because, again, that's not information I need on a Sunday morning. Now, it doesn't matter what order you do these things, but I like to do them as I think about it. I want to go ahead and put markers where the song mappings exist. Another reason, earlier I talked about the different ways to view this. Where is it? Like, the reason why I don't do 1/32 is because then I have to zoom in and get really precise about where to put that locator. And I don't want to have to think that hard. I want it to be as easy as possible. So having it set to 1 bar is going to be accurate for you. Chorus, verse 2. Now, because I'm explaining all of this process is taking a little bit longer than it would. But if I'm just putting together a set, there's no reason why I can't get it done within 5 to 10 minutes. If there's nothing weird that I'm trying to do, I'm just dragging it in there and putting some locators down. Hey, that's because you've already done the hard work of formatting a song, because you've already done the hard work of whatever you need to do to a song in advance, then dragging it all into your main file for a Sunday morning is not problematic. Refrain, chorus, bridge. Another thing, nope, I'll get to that in just a second. But another thing I want to do after this, my click cues and my dynamic cues, where does that go? Well, it goes into the click channel. So everything is it's very self-explanatory. So, of course, again, I'll express it one last time. In our soundboard, that means we have 2, 4, 6, 7 specific channels dedicated solely for the purpose of using tracks, which is it should be more than sufficient for what you're using it for. You could go crazy and learn how to have even more tracks, but I find that can be overkill. Trust me. So, but if you go down that road, hey, by all means. So now we know that our third song, by looking at Planning Center, is He is Yahweh. So let's see here. I'm gonna play it a little bit. Whoops. All right. So it's actually, you can't quite hear it, but sometimes the audio will cut out in Ableton Live. That's because the computer is this file is only taking a snapshot of these songs. Like, these songs exist as a hard copy, but it's having to refer back to it, and it's just a lot of work for this large file. So just like we talked about before, we want to make sure we hit collect all and save so that the hard copy actually exists within the set list. And that's also why I like to delete it when we're done, because that's a lot of information to carry on your computer. So I'm going to let that do its work. So now when I play it, it's not going to cut out. We definitely don't want audio cutting out ever. So first rule of defense, or first rule of thumb, if you hear that happening, hit collect all and save. In fact, just already have a habit of doing that. No matter if you're making a new song or you're trying to put it all into one set list. Just a good practice to be in. All right, so I'm going to go to song number 3. And I'm going to call it I'm going to rename this He is Yahweh. Right click, He is Yahweh. And from there, I'm going to look at the file. I know this is right, it's in D. Go back to the very beginning. Shift, hit the first file, hit the first file, then hit Shift. Last file, Command X. I'm hitting number 3. And now I want all this information again. All right. I changed the view because sometimes it's just easier for me to do it that way. You don't have to do it. A lot of this is preferential things. All right. So I'm going to hit the number 3. Make sure I start off at the very. If you try to paste it and you're not on the right column, it's not going to understand what you're trying to do. So, or it might put things in the wrong place. So, prime example: if I were to have just a random audio track right here, which I don't suggest doing. This is just to show you. So I just tried to copy it. Nothing happened. So just be mindful. All right, 3. And, oops. There we go. All right. So now He is Yahweh is in there. I want to make sure the click is the leader. And now I'm going to go through the process of adding those labels. Intro. Verse 1. Remember, to do that, you go right where that song section begins. Right click, add locator. Chorus. Verse 3. Verse 4. Chorus. Again, I know this can feel tedious because it is a tedious task, but I've found this to be so helpful. And it gives me flexibility in case I want to repeat a section. The way this machine, or the way Ableton repeats, is basing it off of a locator. That sounds very complicated, but I'll show you in real time here in just a second what I mean by that. All right, and then that's the end. So we're playing a song. You can't quite hear it. Let's see. Oh, yeah, this is important. All right, routing again. So loops, bass, electric guitar, keys. Yeah, pretty easy stuff. Keys. I'm gonna leave that in there for right now. I'm not gonna use it on Sunday, but I'm just gonna leave it in there for right now. It's not hurting anybody. All right. And I always have a vocal reference track. Of course, we're not playing that through the sound system, but in case something happens, it's just nice to have something. Someone might forget how something goes, some melody, and they might blank out during practice. Oh, we can play it right now, and then you can hear how it goes. So that's the thought process behind that, but that's not something you absolutely need to do. All right, so I'm going to delete all the information I don't need. And all right. So let's say I wanted to repeat a section. I hit R on my keypad to repeat. And you see how eventually, oh, you know what? See, this is also why you kind of double check yourself. That actually needs to say IAC driver. So the IAC driver is a way of the Mac, of this program, to communicate to itself what's going on. So it's internal. When we send a MIDI note to ProPresenter, it's external, but the way that we repeat things happens internally in the computer. So I'm going to hit repeat again. We're going through this. This cue is really important because it means that, hey, let's go back to this part, and then bam. So that's why we repeat things, or that is how we repeat things. So, and that's built in this specific template. All right, so we're done with that. And because I know that is our last, okay. So one other thing, I also want to make sure that I always group things. So I've selected all of that. Command G is to group. I'm going to call that He is Yahweh. And because I already used the color blue, I'm gonna change that to a different color. How about purple instead? And I'm going to assign the track color to all the tracks. All right, so we have 3 songs in this set. Now, when we're done with that, that means for our environment that we're going to shift into liturgy. So what I already have set aside here, again, that also needs to say IAC driver. So any triggers you send to yourself, these are the ones that you have to send to yourself. Repeat, cue switch, triggers. And that's always going to say IAC driver. Don't worry about the new Ableton. Don't worry about the network. That was an old protocol in which we used to send MIDI notes to ProPresenter. But yeah, you want the new iMac network when you're sending it to ProPresenter. But for the computer, you need the IAC driver. So I'm going to go ahead and collapse that. So one thing I don't love to do, I don't want to just manually stop songs. It's just one more thing I have to think about. So I always have a cue set up to where it just stops on its own. So you can see where it did stop right there. All right. So a couple more, 2 more songs to go. Oh, another thing I like to do, just housekeeping. I'm going to delete what I don't need. These are all things I probably needed at some point, but or I had an idea to do something, but I didn't. Sometimes you can get too complicated with things, or I know I can. So I never did certain things because it seemed really cool to do, but then it turned out not cool to try. And just one more thing to think about. So I know my 4th song is going to be Faithful. Now, because that song is in 6/8, I already know that. I need to insert a time signature change. So anytime something is not in 4/4, go ahead and do that. So I'm gonna look for Faithful. There it is. I'm gonna drag it on in. And I'm going to select all of that. Command X for Command V. Again, that's just copying and pasting what we need. I'm going to do the same thing for this information that we need up top. Whoops. I'd prefer having a mouse at all times, but that's just not the cards I have currently. So I'm going to hit 4, Command V. And as always, we want that click to be the leader. All right. And now I'm going to delete everything that we actually don't find helpful for us. Because again, and I'm sorry if I keep repeating myself, but it's really important that we don't have too many things to look at on a Sunday morning. And I'm going to group all those things together, and I'm going to call it faithful. All right? Now, the last thing I want to do, of course, is to make sure they are all the same color by right-clicking and going to assign track color to group tracks and clips. And I also know that at the end of the fourth song, I need a stop command, because at that point we will be entering into the sermon. Right? So I'm gonna let it play out for a few measures so you can see what's happening. And when it gets to that stop command, of course, it's going to stop. So again, the less I have to think about on a Sunday morning, the better. And that's another reason why I like to have continuity in my songs, because if I know the next one's coming right up, hey, I don't have to worry about hitting number 2, or on my loop pedal, or not my loop pedal, but my MIDI controller, I don't have to worry about hitting the number 2 on it, because it's just going to automatically go. Now, there are times that it's good to have space, don't get me wrong, but by and large, I like to have as much continuity as possible. So, all right. So next we have song 5. Actually, no, I made the mistake a bit ago. I deleted more than I needed, so I'm going to actually add a marker. And this is not something you need to worry about, but it's something I like to think about. So I'm gonna actually call that E, and then call it E, and then prayer pads. Whenever there's a prayer at the end of a sermon, I like to have a little bit of ambient sound, because that does two things. It kind of gets us into the mind of what key we're about to go into, but also it's just nice to have that going on. It's not a must. The reason I said E, prayer pads, is because I want this to be assigned to the letter E on my keypad. So when I'm ready to do it, I just hit E, and then it's ready to go. And now one of the things I like to do is add a track. Command T is adding a new track, and rename that pads, specifically for this. So I like to look at what key I am about to get into. I know that's D. So from there, I'm going to go to, let's see, atmospheric pads. There we are. It's amazing. I look at this every week, and then sometimes I still have a hard time locating where things are, but it's never changed. Okay, so I put it in there, and I want to make sure I take warp off, because I don't want that to be following any sort of tempo. And while I'm at it, because I know, actually, Give Thanks to God is in 6/8. So I can actually keep the same time signature that we had for Faithful. Now, if this were in 4/4, I'd have to find any place after the audio of Faithful, and go and right click and go 4/4, and it retains that time signature. So if I did that, I'm not going to do that, but that's what it would look like. So anyway, we're in 6/8. Song 5 is going to be called, song 5. Song 5 is going to be, oh my gosh. You have to actually click on it. That is my bad. Song 5, yet again. All right. Whoops. Did not mean to do that. Song 5 is Give Thanks to God. All right. I'm going to lower the volume of the tracks. This isn't something you have to do, but I just know intuitively that they tend to come in pretty hot. And that's not, I don't want the pads to be dominating what's happening during the prayer. It's just nice background things that's happening. So, and then I also want to shorten the length of the pad, so that whenever the song kind of starts to get going, the pads will be fading out. All right, so I'm going to go back to temporary Sunday storage. Give Thanks to God in D. Same sort of situation that we've been doing all session. I drag it in there. for the audio information that I need. Command X5, paste. And then, there we go. I take the other information, the slide information, all the things we've talked about previously, and I paste it where I need it. And I make sure, of course, as always, the click is setting the pace for the song. And I'm gonna add locators. I'm not gonna actually do that. Nope. No. You know what? I'll do it. It's just still. I would do it normally, of course, but I know, again, this is very tedious. So, but I just want to hammer home the point of why that is just really important to do. Verse 3. Yep. I know this is a longer video, but I really hope that it can be a resource and a help for you as you're building your Ableton Live set, but more importantly, as you're understanding what that looks like in this specific context. Of course, Ableton Live has wide application, and anyone can watch this video and find something useful, but there's something about the way that this program operates within this specific church. So I'm going to rename that Give Thanks to God. Collapse it. Again, we do that because we don't really need to see the audio information on a Sunday morning. Assign it to light colors. We want all the colors to be the same, and then, just for giggles, there's no audio happening after this song, but hey, it's a good idea to go ahead and put a trigger right there and stop it so that it can just stop on its own. All right, so that's the nuts and bolts of it. We're going to take a brief moment and just double check our routing here. Give thanks to God. Yep. See, prime example. That's why we don't want to just rely on what's already in here. We still have to assign things. So without getting too deeply into it, I know these are percussive things that are happening right here. So loops, cello. Doesn't super matter where you put that. I'm going to put that in our bass. For lack of a better term, this will be our keys. Those are mallet instruments, so I'll put those in the loops. There's no right or wrong way to think about things that fall outside the way these are labeled. You just have to use your best judgment and maybe not stack too much in any one of these channels. 1 and 2 aren't assigned to anything, so remember that. But anything with these names, even if you were to download Ableton Live and get it set up on another computer, the soundboard in the back will be expecting these channels to be in use from Ableton Live. All right. Collapse it. Now, let's talk just a moment about ProPresenter. So select playlist item. Well, what does that mean? What is I'm sorry, we will get to playlist item, but select playlist. What does that mean? One of the main tools that I have on this computer is something called TeamViewer. TeamViewer allows me to remote into our iMac computer. So if you're without someone running ProPresenter, you're not stuck. You can actually log on to that yourself. So right now you see that I'm looking at our Mac Mini. That's not actually what I want to see. What I want to see is our iMac. Apparently there's already a connection. There we go. All right. So what is our playlist? What does that mean by selecting playlists? Well, ProPresenter has a playlist category. Right now there's only one playlist. So when it says select playlist 1. That's what that means. What does select playlist item mean? Well, everything on here is numbered. The computer understands it as a number. So I'll go through it real quick. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So everything that exists within this pane, within this window on ProPresenter, represents the order in which the computer understands it. So, Fairest Lord Jesus, song number 1 should be what? 1, 2. Anything you can click on represents a number. So that's why on ProPresenter, I keep all of our songs in the same place. I want to know every single Sunday that I'm not having to think too hard about where the songs are. So our first song, if you keep this same sort of arrangement up, which I don't see why you want to change that if you're automating slides, your very first playlist item will actually be playlist item 2. So I'm going to go into our ProPresenter 7 MIDI cues, and you'll have access to this folder as well. Select playlist item, and I'm going to choose select playlist item 2. All right, we're not quite done yet. I need to change the view. I'm going to change it to 1/32 because that actually is really helpful for being precise. So once I've done that, I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to hit Option, select it, and I'm going to put it in the next place. And then I'm going to just, you don't have to do this, but then I'm going to put it in, let me extend it so you can see. And then I'm going to put it in the next place. The reason I do that, I'm going to delete that. All right, the reason why I do that is because, let's say for some reason the iMac doesn't it's not picking up on what's happening. Well, then I've given it another chance to do that. You don't have to do it that way, and the computer's really good about picking up what's happening. This is not to make you paranoid. I just am paranoid. So I don't want to project that on anyone else. But what I will do, I'll start to play it. So you'll see it. All right. So now the song is playing. And you're going to start to see, oh, this is actually going to bring me to a really good point in just a second. Let's see if it does it. Nope. All right, so sorry. There's a couple things that went wrong. I actually had the wrong things triggered on the right side of my screen. So let's see. I'll correct that in the template so it's not confusing when your time comes to use it. So what did I do? Yep. All right, that's the way it should look. So let's look at it again. And in a previous video, I talked about the importance of restarting ProPresenter. This is one main reason why we do that, because sometimes ProPresenter takes a second to actually get going. It may not automatically recognize MIDI cues, but that's only when you walk in on a Sunday morning and you're getting started. That's when it's a wise idea to go ahead and say, "Hey, I'm gonna restart ProPresenter." That's the only reason I ever get paranoid about ProPresenter, and I can be pretty just particular about that. So today I've done a lot on ProPresenter, so I could stand to actually restart that. So I'm looking at the iMac computer right now that I've remoted into. And I'm going to pull up ProPresenter. And now when I start our track, it should pop right up. So let's just double check a couple things. Yep, we have all these things engaged. So the standard is to have select playlist, playlist item, ProPresenter engaged. When a section repeats, you have dynamic pro, the repeat, the dynamic cue switch, dynamic cues. You have all, and select playlist and playlist item. You have all those engaged. So, but that's not important for what we're doing right now. So I'm going to hit 1, and I'm going to start it. All right, so see right there, it immediately popped up. I'm not doing anything with my hands. This is the computer on stage communicating to our iMac in the back what's going on. So we don't have to worry about automating slides. I'm going to let that play for about 20 more seconds so you can see, again, no hands. There we go. No hands. It's just doing what it needs to do. We've already built the automations ahead of time. And so we can relax and feel confident in what's happening. So I still suggest, I would never get away from having someone in the back because they need to be there in case something were to go wrong, or just having someone being able to basically understand how to troubleshoot something. And of course, the person in the back, they're also video switching. So I would never get away from that. But in a crunch and someone is not able to be around, you can rest assured knowing, hey, I've automated my slides. We're good to go. And we can go from there. So I'm going to stop it real quick. Now, another reason, again, why I have the ability to remote in, someone may not show up and from on stage if we're doing, let's say, the call to worship. I can easily just do it from this computer, and you can see it. There's no problem here. I have no sort of issues happening. So, yeah, I hope that's helpful for you as you're navigating Ableton. You're navigating what to do on a Sunday morning. Okay, so that was the first song. I'm not going to go through every single song, but we know number 2, Satisfy. Oh, this is a great example. So, anything that says clear, I don't want anything like that to happen, because what we don't want is 2 MIDI cues happening at the same time. So I don't want the select playlist and the clear slide to be at the same time. Like, that's why we delete that. We don't want anything cleared at all, actually. So select playlist item, we always want that to say 1, because that's the only playlist. I'm sorry, we always want select playlist to say 1. We want the item to fluctuate with where we are. So Satisfy, that's already saying playlist item 3. Again, we go back to our iMac. That means 1, 2, 3. The third thing that we click is Satisfy. 4, Faithful. All right, this is also a great example. So I'm going to delete the extra information right there. That's from an old way I used to do things. So I'm going to select playlist. We always want that to say 1 throughout our set list. I'm going to just trim that. You don't have to do that. I just do it for my own sake. We know that Faithful is the 5th item, right? We stagger it because we don't want 2 MIDI cues happening at the same time. And just to be sure, I'm going to just stagger it right there as well. All right. 5, again. This is the only housekeeping you'll need to do when it comes to this stuff on a weekly basis, because the foundation has already been set. Select playlist. We're going to select 1. All right. If this says give thanks to God, we know that's the 5th song in our set. We know that on Pro Presenter, it's what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's number 6. So we go to playlist item, and we go to 6, and we stagger it. And we do the same exact thing right here, right? So let's review. So song number 1 is playlist item number 2. Song number 2 is playlist item number 3. Now I'm glad I caught that. So I'm gonna just move that up, and I'm gonna stagger it. All right. All right, so something weird happened, and I need to figure out. Oh, okay, I'm so sorry. I'm used to being paranoid, so don't mind me. So, Satisfy. Yep. And we go to He Is Yahweh. Song number 3 is song number 4 on Pro Presenter. Song number 4 is what? Song number 5. Now, song number 5 is song number 6. Right? All right, so there we go. I'm going to make sure that's set. So this item had nothing. I did not put it in this column or this row, and that was my mistake. So I just went back and corrected that. So, and if you need to verify, especially the first few times you might be doing this and understanding how it works here, it's just a good idea to go ahead and, all right, so it skipped over to Satisfy. All right, you hear that sound? That again means I need to actually collect all and save again, because it's been a while since we've done that. Again, that's a lot of information that this computer is processing, and we want to make sure it actually lives on the computer. We don't want it to stay there forever, which is why I'm an advocate for deleting it after the fact. All right, so it did it. So we're going to go back to satisfy. All right. So you'll see it start to change here in a second. No hands here. All right. If you've been watching this video expecting to see my face, I'm so sorry. My phone just died. That is okay. We'll keep on going. Keep it moving. All right. So you see that. That's good to go. 3, He is Yahweh. Yep, it popped up. 4, faithful. Yep. Whenever it skips automatically like that, you know it's about to pop up. So, and now let's go to 5, give thanks to God. Yes, as you can tell, that did pop up. All right, so that explains that. The reason why is I don't have it mapped like 1 to 1, 2 to 2, 3 to 3. I always want this header at the very top to say automated slides. Please do not rearrange. I do that because it says it in the title. I don't want someone going in there and thinking, oh, this should actually, let's play with the slides. No, we need it right there for that specific reason. So you might find, hey, I don't want this, and I just want it, if I want to continue to automate, I don't want that first header. And that's totally okay. But I just want to give you a rundown of the whys behind the things that I do. So that is what it looks like for me as I prepare on a Sunday morning. So quick note about Dante. If you notice Dante, again, that's the protocol we use in which to send our tracks to the back. If you notice that for some reason Dante's not popping up, you want to make sure you want to hit Command Spacebar and search Dante Virtual Sound Card. Sometimes that can, let's see what happens if I stop it. So sometimes that may not be triggered, so you may need to hit Start. Now, I always have had it working like this, so that's not something that's normally going to happen. But when that does, you do that. And then you go back into Ableton, hit Command, comma, and make sure the output device says Dante Virtual Sound Card. And once you've done that, you are good to go. So, hey, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that it's been a helpful thing for you. And, yeah, appreciate it.